guys, Cody here, and today we are on Napoleon Total War doing a 3v3 on Pyrenees Peak. So this replay was sent in to me by Matthew, and he's going to be in command of the Austrians. So he's going to be on his home ground, fighting for his land, and we will see if he is successful in doing so. Rules for this battle were 1 artillery max, so you guys are about to see a wide variety of units and nothing holding these guys back. So there might be a spam of light infantry, spam of artillery, or excuse me, light infantry. But let's get right into his army comp. So starting off with the artillery itself, we have the 7-pound howitzers. Very useful on this map just because the terrain is not so flat. So those arcing volleys are actually going to be much more successful than the traditional cannons. You can see he's going to be facing the British as his opponent. But taking a look back at his army, on the left flank he's brought 2 Hungarian grenadiers, and they're going to be defending these Grenzers, which are light infantry units. The unit sizes are on ultra, so there are going to be a lot of more men on the battlefield than usual. We also have some dragoons with the chevron, some more Hungarian fusiliers. Actually, a lot of Hungarian Fusiliers, I believe 5 Hungarian Fusiliers. He has another Dragoon unit on the right flank, and then he has brought Joseph as his general, so he's going to have a little bit of a morale boost here. And let's try to find him. I believe this is him right here with a nice wig and a very nice red and white coat. So not usually used to seeing people bring elite generals, but it really does help against morale, or for morale. Now his opponent is going to be bringing a lot of foot guards as well as foot. You can see he didn't bring any cavalry other than his general staff. He did bring rifles though, so that he's going to outrange Matthew in the long range. But Matthew kicking the engagement off with a big cavalry charge. But the foot guards are going to be forming square, and we will see if these guys can make it to these guys. And it looks like they will, but they are caught in square formation, and they're going to get plowed down, already losing about a third of their guys. So not a good charge at all by Matthew, but luckily he did pull back his troops in time and did salvage that unit. Taking a look quickly at the rest of his allies, we have the Russians in the center, and then another Austrian army on the right flank, and he's going to be defending his land as well. Facing the Austrians, we have the Russians over here. You see bringing those 20-pound unicorns, and they're going to be kicking off the engagement on the right flank. Thinking their cavalry is safe, they are dead wrong. Those 20-pound unicorns can blast volleys across the map, so he needs to be careful of that. And then finally, we have the Ottomans, and they're going to be facing the Russians. So 2 big melee factions, and we will see who will be the victor here. But taking a look at the Russian army, very interesting build here, bringing a lot of militia. Now, these guys are upgraded, so they won't break as soon as regular militiamen, but they definitely do not have the skill as what most militia units or line units would have. So he's brought pretty much that as his main army. But the engagement has started over here. You can see those 7-pound howitzers are going to be engaging these rifles. It looks like we have a skirmish engagement between the Grenzers and these rifle infantry units. And it looks like the rifles are not in light formation, so standing up is definitely going to make them a bigger target, and in the end it might actually cost them this engagement. But here we go again. Matthew's going to charge back in, sending his depleted Dragoon unit back into these rifles. And it looks like they're somewhat unprotected. Yes, there are some foot guards behind them, but they will not get there in time to defend these rifles against these Dragoons. And they're going to get a very, very nice charge in. You can see already depleting his men quite a bit. Zooming out a little bit, you can see on the right flank, looks like Britain's going to try and flank as well. Matthew is well prepared for that and actually has a flanking force over here as well, consisting of the Grenadiers and the Grenzers. But overall, Matthew's doing a really good job of keeping these British players, or the British player, back, and being very, very effective with this cavalry. So at this point, Matthew pretty much knows that this cavalry is going to be gone very soon. So he's going to try to make the most of it, and he is definitely doing that, really depleting these rifles. And you see actually friendly firing his own guys, the British player is, and losing a ton of his lights. So this is going to allow Matthew to push further into the forest and once he does claim the forest, he will be at a much better advantage than the British will. Over here in the center, though, we got the Russian militia charging into the light infantry. Ottoman player well prepared, and actually has light infantry behind his lights. So these militiamen are going to have a tough time trying to break the morale of these guys. We will see if they get a point-blank volley in. It looks like they will. Oh, actually they won't. Good charge here by Russia, but will those militiamen hold up against those line infantry? We will find out. Over on the left flank, still a stalemate between the artillery pieces. Good charge here by the cuirassiers, charging into those light infantry and really breaking that morale. We got some Bashi Bazooks now charging into the melee combat. They're going to be facing those militiamen as well. Morale is still strong on both sides, but it looks like this Russian player is just trying to go for overwhelming numbers to try and get into melee combat. And he's going to just continue to charge into these Ottomans. Just one at a time. Taking a look back over here, looks like some more Dragoons are being charged in. Matthew does notice they did form square, so he's going to be retreating. Good volley there by the howitzers. Actually, he's going to be committing into the square. Not a great move. Wonder if that was a micro mistake or not. Over on the right flank, though, you see the Lightfoot thinking this hill is an opponent. So they're going to be giving this hill hell right now. But on the other hand, Matthew's being smart, turning his guys off fire at will, so he does not take any losses in terms of ammunition. Now we have the Hungarian Fusiliers getting into the combat, and they're going to be engaging these foot that are actually pushing up into the forest as well. You see they are very clustered, so this means artillery attacks are going to be much more easier to land their targets, and if they do, it's going to be devastating for these lines. Looks like the British are going to try and counter with some more line, and they're getting some pretty good shots in, but Matthew's being smart with being spread out. That's definitely going to benefit him much more than the British will. Taking a look at the center, though, two massive armies colliding in the center, just meleeing out, seeing who has the better melee troops. And right now it is looking like the Ottomans are doing a much better job. It seems like these guys are just much more well equipped in melee combat, just because the Bashi Bazooks have swords, and the Ottomans in general are trained in melee combat. Got some grenadiers throwing their grenades into the lines and actually friendly firing his own guys, but also the enemy. Here comes another volley coming in, landing a little short of their intended targets, but ripping anything in range of those grenades will just destroy those guys. So it looks like the Russian general is going to be retreating, seeing that he's getting a little bit too close for comfort. Meanwhile, we have the cuirassiers engaged in melee combat against these Bashi Bazooks and Janissaries. Looks like the general is actually going to be turning around and charging into the Janissaries, actually breaking one of the Bashi Bazook units, so good job there. As for on the far right flank, we have this, good square formation there, catching those Uhlans off guard. And we also have the Emperor's Own here engaging from afar and actually really destroying those Uhlans. You see only breaking, or bringing them down to 16 men. Taking a look back at Matthew's perspective, artillery really landing their marks, as well as these volleys coming in from those Fusiliers, just devastating these guys. Just because these guys are just so clustered up, it's going to cost them a lot of men, and it is clearly showing. The bodies are just starting to be piled up. On the right flank, though, it looks like we have some Dragoons trying to be charged in, but they barely make it into the lines with very low numbers and pretty much break on impact. But this is going to allow some line to be pushed forth and hopefully get in some pretty close combat with these Lightfoot. Lightfoot are going to be engaging, though. Hill is not going to be protecting these Austrians anymore. And it looks like they're going to be charging in, so we will see what happens here. But Matthew's doing a fantastic job in the center, breaking these foot. But it looks like the general's still back there, and the foot guards are going to be shifting over to the right flank, making sure these Austrians cannot break through. But we will see what these guys are capable of. Looks like those foot guards are going to be opening up very shortly. Lightfoot are caught up in melee combat right now. Devastating volley from the foot guards. That is going to really bring down the morale. In the center, though, we have a melee charge by the Hungarian Fusiliers charging into the foot. Pretty low numbers, but they do manage to make it into melee combat. Meanwhile, these other foot are engaging the Grenadiers and Hungarian Fusiliers. And right now, Russia is still very even between who is winning right now. Now, just keep in mind there are two Russian factions. One's going to be on Matthew's side and one against, so be careful at watching the minimap, making sure you do not confuse the units. But it looks like the allied Russian player is actually doing a lot of damage in the center right now, and really breaking the morale of these Janissaries. And it looks like these light infantry are caught off guard here, and it looks like the general himself is going to be charging in. That is going to really hurt them and bring their numbers down. But we have some some Janissaries, musketeers pushing in, as well as some light infantry. And they're going to be protecting the retreat of these light infantry, but actually killing their own guys. So a lot of friendly fire. But taking a look back at Matthew's perspective, those Grenadiers are still in melee combat against the Lightfoot, and they're doing a lot of devastating work here. Actually about to break those Lightfoot. And now we have the Grenzers. They're about to be engaging as well. But they are isolated. They have no other line units. Actually, they do. We have some Hungarian Fusiliers pushing up now, trying to protect their flank. Meanwhile, the engagement in the center is still continuing. But the British are definitely losing this engagement. You can see this Hungarian Fusiliers lost about 60 guys, as to where this unit's lost much more than that. British general actually going to be charging into his enemy lights here. And a very good charge here by the British player. Sending guys flying. Looks like the Hungarian Fusiliers are trying to respond, but it's taking them a long time to form up. But we will see if he's able to general snipe the British from afar. And he actually is. Great job there. Good volley. So with the general dead of the British, that is going to really hurt the morale of them. So we will see what Matthew can do. But taking a look on the left flank, looks like the Austrians are going to try and hold this line. They do have a slight hill advantage. Artillery is protecting them. But we still have these 20-pound howitzers engaging. And they have quite the chevrons. But for being only 2 units in this area, they are doing a great job at pushing back the Russians and creating some distance between the two factions. In the center, once again, Allied General charging into these Ottomans. He is a true hero in trying to break these Ottoman troops. But we have some camel gunners now pushing in. We will see where these guys are headed. And it looks like they're going to be heading over to the center of the battlefield. But the Russians, once again, back into melee combat. It looks like these two nations have just been in melee combat for the entire battle. Now the foot guards are going to be charging into the Hungarian Fusiliers at the base of the hill. It looks like Joseph's going to be shifting over, trying to inspire these guys. But going up against 3 foot guards is never a good idea. And eventually these guys will break. So once again, shifting over more troops to try and protect his flank. He does have artillery blasting his guys, or his opponent. And once again, another general is dead. This time it is the Ottoman general. He tried doing a daring charge into the militiamen, but they were able to hold and actually kill that general. So morale for the British and the Ottomans should go down fairly soon. And it's going to be very devastating. Great charge from the back with the 1st Hussars and instantly breaking those guys. So now it looks like things are turning around. Ottoman troops now retreating from the battlefields, but the Russians are heavily depleted. It looks like these Grenadiers are just going to be chasing down these light infantry. charging in column formation. Very interesting charge formation. But it looks like they will reach these guys and make it into melee combat. We got the captain here slaying one of the guys. But the general bodyguard is going to be charging in to those grenadiers. Grenadiers do hold with some pretty low numbers, but that general's bodyguard is still very capable of doing a lot of damage. Looks like the British are going to fall back. Don't want to engage again just because they're probably very tired. And plus they're going to be kind of ambushed with this kind of choke point. Taking a look back at the center, we got some more grenadiers. This time same grenadier unit charging into the general's bodyguard. And they're going to be warding those guys off. So they're going to be retreating. Chemical gunners trying to take the Russians out, but actually shooting their own guys once again. A lot of friendly fire by the Ottoman player. But on the left flank, things are very close, and it is very, very early to tell who's winning this. But those 20-pound unicorns destroying the first Hussars, bringing their numbers down to 50 men, and here comes another volley. Bringing them down to 44, so slowly this unit is going to be deteriorating. And if he does not move them now, they're going to break, and he's actually going to be charging them into the Russian Jaegers, but taking a volley from the lifeguard afoot. But here they go, coming around the bend. Will these Russians be prepared to counter these guys? And it looks like they will, unloading just volley after volley into these guys and breaking them. So there goes that Austrian unit. So taking a look at the map, you can see in the center, pretty much the Russians control the central territory, actually splitting off the British and the Russians. But now, a big attack by Matthew here, and charging in his Hungarian Fusiliers, but once again, foot guards on top and able to break that Austrian morale. Here we go again, Hungarian Fusiliers about to be in an engagement with the foot guards. And they're just waiting to form up to get their volleys in. And here comes his general again. Joseph coming in, risking his life for his men, and getting these guys out of square formation. Great charge there. Actually, it looks like they did form square, but the charge was very, very early, so they barely had time to form. Let's try to locate Joseph. Where is he at? Here he is, slaying one of his opponents. Taking out two, actually. Will he die, though? Oh, no. Joseph is dead. Taking at least two guys out with him, if not more. But instantly dropping the morale of these Hungarian Fusiliers. Breaking one of the foot, though. That is good. And it looks like the British are going to be falling back, or at least reforming. Grenzers are exhausted, morale is dropping. Caught in a 3v1, that is never good, and those guys break instantly. So big turnaround here, and it looks like the British are going to be taking control of the right flank. So things are still extremely even. It actually looks like Matthew and his allies are actually losing. Looking at the balance of power, looks like the opponents have the advantage right now. So it's pretty much down to this right flank for the Austrian player. He knows he needs to win this battle against the Russians, you know, just because the British are pretty much, you know, won their engagement. But it looks like the Austrian artillery is still causing a lot of damage for them. And we have some allied Russian troops over here. And another general is dead, and I believe this time it is the Russian general. Don't know how he died. There's no one around him unless it was artillery that killed him. So that is not good. So all of the enemy generals are dead. And I believe, let's take a look. Two, or at least one or two of the generals on Matthew's team is still alive. engagement here, though. These two grenadiers, or 47th unit and grenadier unit, are just holding on for such a long time. I'm actually very impressed to see this, being outnumbered so heavily, 4-2. Especially with those 20-pound unicorns engaging. And they're trying to general snipe his general. That is not good. We'll see if he can retreat those guys out of combat. Same as over here, outnumbered 3-2 and still holding on. So extremely impressive, but look at this. It looks like one of the enemy generals is actually going to be charging in to the artillery piece here. So risking absolutely nothing with this general already dead. He's going to be going in and trying to take out this artillery piece because it is definitely being a nuisance for his troops. So we will see how successful this attack is. Maybe he will be able to switch to canister. If not, he is definitely doomed, and this unit should rout instantly. So it looks like he does notice these guys here, and will he get a canister volley off in time? No, he will not. It is not canister. They don't have the close range, and they will end up breaking, it seems. Looks like the general staff for the Austrians did rout from the battlefield, so he's going to be leaving his men on his own to fend for these Russians, or fend against these Russians. And there goes the artillery piece. Taking a look on the left flank, we have some militia here. They're going to be facing 3 foot guards, but one important factor here is we have some 7-pound howitzers. And they're going to be defending this flank, so pretty much his last unit here besides this Dragoon unit with 16 men. They're going to be trying to take on 3 British foot guards. Very outskilled, outnumbered, but they still hold the artillery, and this is huge for Matthew right now. So these guys are going to be reloading, and we'll see what devastation he can unleash upon these British troops as they get closer and closer. Looks like he's about to be firing very shortly. We'll see if these guys land any direct hits. Volleys away. Beautiful first hit there. I'd say killing at least 15 to 20 men. So great charge there. Militia are going to be ready. And look at this Dragoon charge from the back into these foot guards. That 1 foot guard unit is unable to form square, but the other 2 will, and we will see if these Dragoons will make it out alive. It looks like they won't. Actually, yeah, they won't. Russians back into melee combat. And this is a very smart move by Russia, trying to delay these foot guards from approaching the artillery and actually dropping the morale of these foot guards. So very impressive to see these militia doing such a great job in melee combat. But look at this enemy general charging in from the back, and he once again just an artillery killing machine going in for the next howitzer piece. But Matthew's going to fight till the very end and try and get off as many volleys as he possibly could. But here comes the Russian general. And his unit is going to try and hold on, but looking at the circumstances, it is not looking good. And now it's going to leave these Russians in melee combat against foot guards. But luckily, we got some lifeguard foot now pushing in. And it looks like Matthew's artillery is still fine, losing a couple of guys, but did manage to get back on the artillery piece. This lifeguard are pushing in, but taking a look over here, though. Austrian player is now fully dead. He has lost pretty much all the morale from losing his general, or at least his general retreating. So not looking good for Matthew and his ally. But look at this, breaking those foot guards. Those 3 units are gone from the battlefields, and the only troops left they have are right here. So they're going to be faced against a lot of troops here. And balance of power is definitely not in their favor by no means. He has fixed artillery now. No one to move his artillery around. And he's getting the final shots into these foot guards as they retreat back to Britain. So while that is happening, it looks like the Russians are going to be shifting over their troops. or at least resting their troops up. But look at this, one of the units have come back, the Emperor's Own. And they are not done yet fighting the Austrians, or helping the Austrians out. Just because they are on their home territory. Don't want to allow the Russians to come in and take over their land, so they're going to be coming back. But as of now, I'm going to be fast forwarding, seeing that there is a pretty slow point in the battle here. But we have to take note at the 20-pound unicorns, which are still fully functional, and not taking any losses, and they have 3 chevrons they have earned this battle, so definitely a huge threat to Matthew and his allies. And it looks like the Emperor's Own are going to be retreating back over to the far left flank, and they're going to be reforming with the rest of their troops. But meanwhile, it looks like the Life Guard are going to be chasing them down. Actually, the entire Russian army is going to be chasing them down, and they are going to try and run away if they can make it at least. But 3 lights are chasing them. That is never good. But it looks like the Russians are going to halt their attack on that unit. They're going to let him be free and reunite with the rest of his army. So there they go. They're going to be reforming now. Meanwhile, we still have, I believe, the Ottomans are still doing well. They have a couple cavalry units. Very healthy camel unit, pretty much half health. So that's going to be huge in terms of mobility for the enemy, because as of right now, there is nothing, good that is coming from this army here. They are just depleted. Morale is strong, surprisingly, probably because of this Russian general here, keeping the morale high for his men, but still a very, very long stalemate. So we're going to continue to fast forward this battle. And it looks like Matthew and his allies are actually going to be pushing up here. And Matthew's actually leaving his own artillery piece. And it looks like he's going to be the front line for his ally here, or allies here. They're going to be hiding in the woods. Meanwhile, the Russian player is going to continue to be pushed up. He has Life Guard afoot. A lot of Russian Jaegers. And there goes the 20-pound unicorns, unleashing hell on the enemy. But luckily, it looks like no one took any losses here. In column formation, that is not good. But it looks like the 20-pound unicorns are going to be focused on the Russian general here. Get positioning of that unit behind the hill, but still, that howitzer managing to kill one of his guys. And they do end up breaking. So it looks like they are doomed, but we will see what they can pull out of their sleeve. Let's see if they can try and win this engagement, because not all is lost, surprisingly. They don't have many troops as well. They are down to very low numbers, but the only issue is they have the range and the artillery, which is clearly doing damage, breaking those grenadier units. And it looks like these camel gunners are just going to be in the back, chasing down any retreating units. So good placement there by the Ottoman cavalry. And now they have to attack. They have no other choice. Pushing up their militia and their foot guards, or life guard. They're going head on with these Russians here. So Russian on Russian engagement. You just see in the middle all the bodies that are piled up from that melee engagement between the Russians and the Ottomans. And there goes the light infantry kicking off the engagement. Artillery doing a lot of damage as well. Surprisingly, this guy managed to survive. He's going to be getting back up and forming into his line. Very, very tired, Matthew's troops are, and looks like the final engagement has begun. So, Emperor's Own going to be engaging these Life Guard. Pretty evenly skilled. These Russians trying their best to get into melee combat, but breaking from that 20-pound howitzer volley. We have some militia now pushing in as well. They're going to be trying to get a flanking charge in on these Russian Jaegers. You see them coming in. Will they make it to their lines? We will see. Russian Jaegers, though, don't look too worried as they're still marching forward. But do not underestimate the militia. Charging straight into the backs of those men. And their morale is very, very bad. For Emperor's Own, still holding on, actually breaking as I said that, and that is the game. So fairly close match. It's definitely hard to attack when the opponent has pretty much every advantage over you. But great job all around. You know, taking a look at the kills, Matthew doing an alright job. I mean, he did his best on the left flank, made some decent mistakes in terms of cavalry charging those squares, but as for his opponents, they did a good job. Russian player, 1,700 kills, most kills out of everyone there, but great job with Matthew's artillery, really pounding his British opponent, and really depleting those foot guards. Taking a look at the opponents, though, Ottomans 1,400 kills, getting the most out of those guys. Meanwhile, the Russian player getting the least. Looking at unit statistics, Hungarian Fusiliers on top, 227 kills, so pretty good jump there. And artillery, like I said, doing a really awesome job with 159. So anyways, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys don't mind, smash that like button, and you know, just share this video with as many people as you know. It just really helps me out, and makes me continue, or want to continue, to keep producing videos. But until then, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.